Hello friends, it's me, and today let's watch Game Theory FNAF Secret of the Mimic Live Theory Crafting from the Game Theorist. Together, let's go, let's start. Thank you. So, I'm so sorry to you, this entire video will probably be like 2 hours plus, I guess. Around 2 hours plus. Because this video that I'm directing is 1 hour and 50 minutes plus my review, plus my reaction, plus my words. It's going to be 2 hours, I guess. I'm sorry for being a long video. Please forgive me. And hey, if you guys are watching, remember to drop a like. Thank you. Touch my heart. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the Game Theorists, the team behind all these videos, and thank you so much, Tom. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so this entire live stream occurred a few days ago, a few weeks ago, and yeah, so sorry. By the time I'm uploading this will be a few weeks later, so this came out a few weeks ago, it's gonna be a few weeks later, so sorry. Anyways, hope everything is good. This is going to be very long. I brought some. Oh! Please don't leak, please don't leak, please don't leak. Water? There's no leak, right? There's no water leak, right? That's the leak! That's the crack! That's a huge crack! Okay, this is bad, this is bad, this is very 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 bad. There's already dripping here and there, dripping here and there. So, let's drink it. Thank you so much, friend, bro, for the. Oh no! Wow, this entire thing is. Whew. Thank you so much, my friend, for this. I have to dispose of this. Sorry. Well, I just finished my water, and it still says stream starting soon. Oh gosh, there's a crack here and there's a crack over here. Also, this Oreo snacks and drinks. The drinks finished already, so no more drinks, so it's only snacks. Sorry. Wow, my stomach is full. It's the equivalent of like immediately just 1 kg inside your body. So I'm filming this at 3:59 PM, 11th of July 2025 on a Friday. So yeah. Waiting for him. I believe in real life when it happens, the chat will be because it's stream, so the chat will be. But hey, hello internet, welcome to Game Theory then. But hey, that's just theory, a Game Theory, thanks for watching.你大大的关怀保护着我，你小小的关怀你不休，感谢我们一起做了那么久，有朝一日回到两样时空，你我的手像温柔的手，我们一直都这样向前走。我们小手拉到手，一起加油，向前挥挥手。 No!
Hello Internet, welcome to Game Theory, where today we're doing something a little bit different. Hello and
Hello Internet, welcome to Game Theory. Hello Tom.
welcome to chat. We are going to be theory crafting live. As you've all, I'm sure, have seen, Secret of the Mimic came out last week, and it has been a wild journey. It has reset basically everything we feel we've known about FNAF. And so, as I finished the playthrough along with the wonderful Ash from GT Live yesterday night, I figured it was time to finally lock in and start theorizing about this game. But given the amount that has changed, given the revelations that have occurred, I also wondered whether it would be a good idea to bring you along for the ride, at least to begin with. We have got a lot of theory potential here, and so here at Theory, we always want to make stuff that you guys want to see. And while we have got plenty of other theorists out there who are making a bunch of stuff, which is all great and wonderful to see, it's going to be really fun for you guys if there are questions you want answered, or if there are details that you want to point out. And so this is that opportunity. This is our time to work together to figure out what the heck is going on in this game. It's going to be a wild, wild time. So please, if you have questions, if you have theories of your own, if you have little details that you think are worth pointing out and worth theorizing about, please let us know in the chat. Let's just see what we have going on right now. Let's start actually with what questions do you have? What are the key details that you think we should start with as we begin theory crafting? I think it's also important just to, have the open discussion of there are no wrong answers in brainstorming. Everything is on the table. Secret of the Mimic literally blew my expectations out of the water, and me and Ash had many gobsmacked a moment trying to figure out what was going on and being confused. So I don't think there's anything that's off limits here. I think we can very easily keep our headcanons or our previous theories like in a very open hand. What I always like to do when theorizing is making sure that I am happy to reassess what I've thought before. There are lots of things where we like to hold on to our beliefs in our theories, and sometimes it's good just to be able to go, okay, with this new information, does that change anything? What does that reset? But it always starts with questions.
Tom makes a very good point. Sometimes it's good, but we need to be open to the fact that, hey, maybe we are not 100% correct, and that small sliver of wrong that we had is making the entire arguments very wrong. But we are still correct. But that's majority of this is correct. You get what I mean, don't you? It's like, sometimes it's always good to be open-minded.
Are the questions that take us on a journey of intrigue and interest? Let's see, what have you guys putting up?
He doesn't have chat on screen. I cannot read it.
Scroll through the chat. There's a lot happening. It's great. I'm so glad there are so many of you here.
Yes.
Yeah, all good, all good.
I got one for you, Tom.
Oh yeah, please, Fish, jump in.
Is Edwin still alive?
Ooh, that is a good one. Well, first, let's write that down. Oh, now you're also going to see my awful handwriting. Alive? Question mark? So, let's think about this. So, is Edwin still alive? When we began, one, the fact that Edwin exists, yes, appreciate that. Come on, there we go. That was awful. I have assistants off screen and I was just bad at that. So appreciate that, but hopefully, yeah, this pen works. We love that. So, obviously we were all surprised.
I like it that he initiated the first marker as a green color because, the game theorist, green color.
When Edward started to become a canon thing in this game. If you don't know, if you've not played Secret of the Mimic or read the books, Edward Murray was a character first introduced in the books as the originator of the Mimic. He was the man that created it, and as this game has gone on, it was Edwin Murray's costume manner we were exploring. And so Edwin was an inventor, someone who created basically a lot of different things. He created recycling, was a weird thing we learnt. He also developed parade floats and a system for that, and of course costumes and mimics. We're going to write. So let's talk about some of the things he invented, because I think there are some details there we can grab onto. So, I mean, we were also recycling. We're just going to go there. It's such a wild thing. We also decided to do that. He invented, basically anything that happened in the 70s we can probably attribute to Edwin. Parade floats apparently were his thing. Parade floats. And of course, many costumes and characters, which is always fun. So, is he still alive though? So, again, when you get through to, I know, this is like, is Edwin alive? Recycling, parade floats. This is great. Honestly, this looks insane, and it is, but this is exactly what theory crafting is about. It's literally getting everything we think about on the table and trying to connect the dots where we can. So, Edwin Murray created all of these things, and the big thing, of course, that he created was the Mimic. That was the big one. And the Mimic came in two forms, Mimic 1 and Mimic 2. Mimic 1 was his very first one that he made, trying to basically create a babysitter for his son David when his wife Fiona died tragically at Fall Fest. And so he needed someone to look after David while he was working. And so he made the Mimic that would learn to play and be a babysitter for him when he couldn't be. This Mimic started to develop in some way. Again, like the details are slightly fuzzy, but it started to mimic what it saw from or how it understood Fiona to be, his wife. And so started acting as a secondary mother to David. They then decided to upload, basically, oh yeah, that was it. Again, sorry, this is all very new and it's all coming in fresh. David sadly also passes away because Edwin is just a magnet for bad luck. And Fiona, now as a machine, is basically convincing Edwin to try again, to try and rebuild his son, putting him back together, as it were.
Put him back together.
And from there, they take Fiona's programming, make a copy of it to create Mimic 2, which is going to be David. However, unfortunately, the vision of a robot recreating David is too much for Edwin, and he basically beats the thing up, destroying its legs, it seems to imply, and from there, the Mimic decides it learns violence and takes its revenge, beating up Edwin and blowing up the house. And it's at that point, we learn about that during the parachute ending, and it's through that point, so I'm just gonna write some stuff down, Mimic 2, and then beat up. Beat up, legs, and that goes to the death question. Goes back in a circle, back to death. So, at the end of that tape, Edwin feels very, he's out of breath. There's clearly a fire going on. He's struggling to breathe. He's asking M2 for help and to call an ambulance, call the emergency services. And Mimic does not wish to do that. And so, with Mimic, obviously not wanting to do this, like, he teases him using lines like, I'm busy now. Go play by yourself. I'll play with you later. I'll do that stuff later. So it's a whole thing that they are, but it is then left ambiguous whether Edwin is dead at that point. We have Fiona is unaware of Edwin's status. There are no cameras. There's no way for her, Mimic 1, to see in and know whether Edwin is still alive. She talks to him as if he is, but he's clearly not there. But there is no sign of him. The room is blown up. There's clearly fire damage and some things around that would link to the call. But is he alive? This is one of those moments that I worry. It is purposely left ambiguous. It is purposely left in a state where he could come back. We've got DLC likely on the way. Steel Wool has done DLC for every single game. that they've ever created for FNAF. And so I could see a world where they are purposely leaving it open for DLC to fill in some of that gap. Either it's similar to the books, because in the books, Edwin comes back to Fazbear Entertainment 40 years later, and that's when they're installing the Mimic into the Pizzaplex, and that causes a bunch of problems, and he tries to stop it and dies in the process. They could...
Tom makes a very good point. Maybe they are purposefully making it ambiguous. So that's, hey, he's dead, or is he not? Or maybe he's dead in human, but his consciousness is... You get the point, don't you?
Quite easily be redoing that storyline where 40 years after the fact, or whenever Security Breach is starting up and taking place, which actually happens in the DLC of Help Wanted 1, we could easily, they could decide we're going to bring Edwin back and he's going to try and stop it, but it will ultimately fail regardless because the Mimic still wants revenge on Edwin, still doesn't like the dude for beating him up all those years ago, and so that could easily be where they're going to answer some of that is through the DLC, potentially as the next step before we get to the sequel to Security Breach and Ruin. I could see that happening. But at the same time, it depends on what purpose that would serve the story. Because Edwin being alive or dead at this point doesn't really matter to the long story. I don't feel like it does. Because you think about where the story has gone since, because Secret of the Mimic is the prequel of prequels to all of FNAF. So since then, we've explored the Aftons, we've explored Henry a bit, we've then gotten into Vanessa and Gregory and Cassie and the Mimic, of course. And so there are all these new characters and new stories to focus on. There is a world where Edwin comes back and saves the day, but would that rob something from our new characters? Would that rob a really triumphant ending for Cassie? Or if Gregory and Vanessa are truly free of the Mimic's influence, would that rob them of a satisfying conclusion? So, because that's the other thing we have to bear in mind. You've got these new characters now who are important to the story now, which these things are feeding into. And for Ed, it's one of those questions where sadly there's just not a lot of evidence one way or the other. They left it ambiguous, so he could come back if they need him to. I'm not sure, but he could also just die, and then it wouldn't change anything going forward other than we as an audience would understand how to defeat the Mimic going forward, because even Edwin didn't know how to stop it at the point of the story where he passes away or potentially disappears. So would Edwin know how to stop it, or would he just fall victim like he does in the books? It's one of those questions. It's an interesting one. I'm not sure whether there's enough to answer it, but what do you guys think? Is there stuff that you guys think? Is there other evidence that I'm missing to talk about Edwin's being alive or dead? I think it could go either way.
Maybe Tom is right. Maybe Tom is like, hey, I might be missing something. I'm not too sure. I don't know. I'm so sorry, man. Sorry.
And there's some strong stuff for potentially either. But I want to know if there's any specific details that you can pull from. Because this is the point. This is the great thing. We can be collaborative here. We can work together. Yeah, okay. So a lot of other questions. Edwin is old. Oh, I see that Gibby Homestead. Edwin as old man consequences. Hello, Gibby. Great for you to join us. This thought actually occurred to me today. Is Edwin actually old man consequences? So I think that opens a can of worms, but it's an interesting thought. Where do we go?
What if?
Man
Wait.
consequences. Because I mean,
Makes so much sense.
he is the original consequence. Thank you. More pens, more colors, hurrah. he is the original man of consequence. He literally created his own. He literally created his own demise, and with that, he, faced the consequences of his action and potentially passes away, or at least is destroyed in some factor. He would fit Old Man Consequences. Now, Old Man Consequences only appears very deep in the code of these games of FNAF World and in Ultimate Custom Nights. So that would, and it's all 8-bit, it's all that very, very destroyed, not destroyed, what's the word I'm looking for? Very deep in things. And so I guess it would make sense because, and this opens up a bigger can of worms here, which actually I'm gonna flip for, because there's a bigger can of worms here, which I thought about earlier, and I think it is important for us to talk about if we want to talk about Edwin being Old Man Consequences, was there ever possession? And apologies if I spell things wrong, because I am not very good at it. Oh, I have lost all signal to chat. Chat has disappeared from me. Appreciate you. So, was there a possession, or was it all mimic? Was it oops, all mimic the entire time? Because that game, Ultimate Custom Night, UCN, is all about the... This game is all about the vengeful spirit taking its revenge. Whoever you believe that to be, I typically tend to believe it is Cassidy, and that is who Ultimate Custom Night is about, which, meeting Old Man Consequences, you go, doesn't strictly make sense for Cassidy, but at the same time, it's meant to be a mysterious figure, just an old wise man who's kind of been there, done that, leave the demon to his demons. Edwin also has beef with Afton. I'm trying to think about how I break this up and write this down in a way that makes some kind of sense. We'll go back to green for Edwin. So, Edwin, we know, has beef with Afton. I know those things don't mean that, but it does for me. Edwin is not Afton, but he also has beef with Afton. And so the whole line about leave the demon to his demons makes a lot of sense coming from Edwin. If it's in the code, if he's deep in the code, then Edwin, because Edwin built everything, and most people, when they're like hacking or hijacking, will leave a digital signature. So, sometimes we saw it with GGY. GGY literally left a signature for people to read. Reading GGY literally in the animatronic code. So, it wouldn't be surprising for Edwin to have put some kind of digital signature in for himself into the animatronics and into his code and his creations. That may, because it is Edwin and he was messing with the mimic and messing with like bringing Fiona and David back, could have been something that's a little more than just like, haha, I left my initials in there. That could be really interesting as an idea. And so Old Man Consequences is literally lying in the code waiting for people to, or waiting for spirits or people or potentially the mimic to come in and say, hey, leave the demon to his demons, let Afton rot, it's fine, let's just be at peace. It's kind of his last chance. And it raises the interesting question of, was there ever...
Okay, so in Chinese it's the same chord, 无风不起浪,事出必有因. If there's no wind, there will not be wave. Every consequences comes with its cause. And what Tom might say is true is that, hey, I'm laying in wait. If someone triggered this cause, I am the consequence that is going to face you. What if?
Was the vengeful spirit in the Ultimate Custom Night about spirits? Or is it different facets of the mimic? was the Mimic, again, it's program splitting in, and the possession we see is actually more to do with the Mimic learning different facets, learning about different children in the pizzerias, and copying people's perspective, and maybe mimicking Afton in the early murders. Or maybe we saw the Mimic putting animatronics into, not animatronics, sorry, putting people into costumes because it saw people climbing into costumes. So is it just an extension of that? That would make a lot of sense for Edwin to then be in the depths of Ultimate Custom Night as like part of the code. And now I've just had a thought, because Ultimate Custom Night, and welcome to my brain, Ultimate Custom Night is a game. All of the first 7 games are games. We know that for sure for FNAF 1 to 4 because of the story Help Wanted in the books. Help Wanted, the game, tells us that like, the previous like games we've seen are about games. Pizzeria Simulator is actually mentioned. I forget. Is it the Monty Within? I think it's the Monty Within, one of the stories. It is specific. Pizzeria Simulator is specifically mentioned as a game, which I think is really interesting. They show the fun times when they're talking about the games in Help Wanted, the game. So I think so if it is an in-universe game, if Ultimate Custom Night is part of that as an in-universe game, there would be code buried in it, which maybe uses Mimic technology, and so therefore would have Edwin's signature coming through, and therefore Old Man Consequences sits at the bottom of Ultimate Custom Night. So Edwin might be physically dead, but there might be an element of him that lives on.
Consciousness.
That's really interesting. Really, really interesting. Okay. That's really good. That's fascinating. I'm seeing a lot of people. Ultimate Custom Night is Afton, is it not? It is. It is Afton's torture. But again, we're talking about like in universe, they talk about the games prior to Help Wanted as being games. Tape Girl tells us that they are trying to make light of what happened, which means that some of them might be canon, some of them might be less canon, or at least not canon, that's probably the wrong word because that's going to cause a lot of confusion. What I mean is that some of these stories might be one for one, exactly as the stories are being told in games, but there also could be some differences, some changes that are to fictionalize the story, i.e. like the idea of spirits versus machine for the murders at Freddy's or things like that. These are the kinds of open issues that are really interesting to talk about. And so Ultimate Custom Night, yes, is about Afton and his eternal torture. But if it's a game, it's in the universe, it's the fictionalized version of like what they kind of expect, the hell that Afton is living in versus actually being the hell that actual Afton lived in. It's just something that I think is interesting to weigh up and something I will definitely think more about. That's fascinating. Right. What other questions are there?
Oh, we got some questions going on.
There's an Ash. Hi, Ash.
Oh, hey y'all. I hope y'all are doing well. I've been reading the chat and I've seen a plethora of things.
Ooh, appreciate it.
My first one that I have here, in a subtle nod to God David, which has appeared quite a good bit.
I've seen God David. What is God David about?
So instead of going into that head first,
that's fair.
Let us funnel our way into it, and let's talk about. I think a lot of people are curious about the possible connections, similarities, or even misunderstandings about the identities of David as he relates to the crying child and even potentially Gregory. What can we talk about that?
Oh, you went for a big one. That's a big one, chat.
Of course.
Of course. Actually, it's interesting. This one has been going around my head all day, basically since we found the purple telephone in for the Moon.exe game. And it actually kind of relates to this, what we've already been talking about, which is interesting. That idea of the FNAF 1 to 6 or FNAF 1 to 7 even being games in the universe. And so and I'm trying to rally my thoughts here, because the question I would have is, it kind of comes down to what ending we think is canon. Which, let's go and do that. Let's talk about these endings. Because, trust me, this does relate to this question.
I trust you.
I've been thinking about it a lot, probably too much.
Too much.
What ending? We're writing it down. What ending? So you've got 3 endings. We've got the bad ending, which is when we give the data driver goes to Fiona/Mimic. We've got the parachute ending, which I don't know. It's a parachute ending, which is the Mimic still gets the data driver. Or you've got the secret ending, which is when we end up in David's bedroom and we find the Mimic in the closet, kind of being David but glitching out, because the whole point in this is that, like I said earlier, the Mimic 2 is supposed to be David, a recreation of David. But sadly, because Edwin got mad and raged, it means that he learnt violence and is glitching out and isn't perfect. What Fiona is trying to do is she wants to put her family back together, which, doesn't that sound familiar? She wants to fix this David bot and turn David into, turn the Mimic 2 into the perfect David replica, so their family can be together again.
And the awkward analogy is that in real life, when that happens, let's say if the father for one single night, or for one single moment, or for the one single 10 seconds, 20 seconds rage, it is a very understandable, reasonable, in some cases not reasonable, human error, human emotions. And the unfortunate thing is, for that, let's say 30 seconds of outbursts of common human emotions, but the unfortunate thing is, it happens at the wrong place at the wrong time in front of the wrong person. The kid, in this case the Mimic, learned violence. And the unfortunate thing is not like children's, in which we can talk them out, like, hey, this is violence, we'll avoid that. We do our best to try not to use that. Robots can't.
So we've got David, Mimic. So the discussions that are, and thought processes that are happening is...
Hey, 25% is completed.
The connections with David that we have right now is that both Davids are called David. So it was recently theorized by Hyperdroid, and we did a theory covering it, and it seemed, we felt it was a really strong case to be made that Crying Child CC, Crying Child equals David Afton. And so naturally, you've got David Murray and David Afton, 2 very, very, very close connections there. The bedroom feels the same. So we've got same name, same bedroom, same toys, and what else? What else is similar about these 2? But those are some of the early connections, or at least the initial ones that I made. Especially on stream, we talked about it a little bit as well. And with that, it begs the question, are these 2 the same thing? And if this ending is the true ending, then there is a world where that could be true. Because you would have the Mimic being fixed, and there was a message we got from the mail logs, the group chat, that told us about Afton buying or acquiring MCM and all of its IP and even the land on which it stood, including the house up on the hill. Oh, that was it. The house, same house, just generally. It's the same house on a hill.
Same house. Or same
And
land.
so,
same
if
land.
Afton bought the house where the mimic, David Mimic, ends up at the end sleeping in a bed, then Afton would have every right to pick up that character, that mimic, and go, huh, you're interesting. I want to figure out how you work, which is why we see, let's get some red in here, well, it's why we see him observing the mimic. He's trying to figure out how it works. He's using nightmares to add a stimuli to see what changes with this with this mimic. How well does it learn? How does it learn? Let's figure something out. He would have the ability to it fits in with the whole "I will put you back together" thing. It's not necessarily him wanting to put his son back together, but this whole but it's a robot. It's literally the mimic too, and so he would want to put together. It would also, I could see it explaining why he feels so aloof as like a father. He's just talking to it through a walkie-talkie. Like there's no emotional attachment there, right? Because he's just, it's a robot. Which then brings to mind, oh gosh, I can't believe that's the connection I'm making. We then have the baby isn't mine. The whole thing from The Immortal and the Restless, the vampire in a purple suit talking to his wife saying, the baby isn't mine. And we've always wondered, is a character adopted? Is that Michael? Is that Elizabeth? Is that the crying child, David? It now feels like it would be, that would where that makes sense. It's literally him telling his wife, hey, the baby's not mine. Like this isn't like a kid I had with another woman. This is a robot kid that I found in the thing that I bought. So that is interesting. That is interesting. So that would be the connections to David, which is, yeah, a lot to think about. Thanks, chat, for that question. That's a big one. There's still some more because the other factor is, I think, there's something about this which is feeling a little weird to me. I can't quite figure out what it is. Probably that there are some small things where it's like, yeah, he's observing him and there's nightmare animatronics and things like that. But we specifically, while the books aren't canon, they are useful for filling in certain blanks in the story. And we got Ditophobia as a story, which basically told us that it's hallucinogenic gas that is used. And in a recent theory, we talked about the gas that is like all around the place in Sister Location and in Security Breach. And for like that gas isn't going to have an effect on a mimic. Neither are sound illusion discs. They specifically don't work. Oh, they do, but they don't. No, in the trilogy, they have to be adjusted to work on the robots for the frequency. Normally, they don't in the same way. And so that would be weird to use on the mimic, which is not going to have any effect. And this is what I mean about there being potential options, because if like either of these two are canon, there's a world where you have to discuss whether David Afton as a character is even real. Earlier I said about the games being games within the game, because Scott couldn't be, confusing enough as it was. But the games within the game would allow Fazbear essentially rewriting history. And we saw that throughout the actual playthrough. The whole point is them rewriting history and like removing Edwin from the equation. So all of these characters that are Fazbear characters, yeah, Fazbear later owned them, but it's kind of wiping away the whole idea that Edwin made them to begin with. And there's a lot of parallels between Edwin's story. Oh, light went out. Well then, that's fine. It's all good. And so with those sorts of elements, you go, are they taking the real story, i.e. Edwin's story about his kid that he wanted to build and put back together and rebuild his family, instead of, and putting it in the game universe, in their fictionalized version of the real stories, on Afton to kind of keep it in-house, to keep it within the Fazbear brand, because they are working through their public image and their stuff like that. It's just, and again, I don't love that as an idea. It feels a little odd, but it is an interesting concept. I think the main thing that's making me lean towards one of these two, outside of that wild sort of speculation that I just talked about, is the fact that the Mimic needs to end up underground. It needs to end up still broken, so not fixed like it is in the David ending, but it needs to end up being cemented underground for the Pizzaplex to be built on top. Because that's a big part of this, is that the Pizzaplex seems to be built on top of MCM. And therefore, if all of that, because we saw the scoop, we saw the costumes in the wooden boxes, in the room where we find the Mimic in ruin. If we have that, then at the same time, the Mimic needs to be locked in that same room. But right now, in all these endings, the Mimic has escaped in some way. The only thing that helps me lean towards these two is that the Mimic is still broken, like we see it at the end of Ruin, where it still is trying to attack, it's still being violent, they're still working together, Mimic 1 and Mimic 2. Whereas in this ending, everything's fixed and fine, which means we would have to insert more story to figure out why it suddenly became evil again. And partly that's going to end up on Steel Wool. We talked about DLC, it's like, where is their DLC going to go? Is their DLC going to be showing us the Mimic escaping in these and then ending up back sealed underground to set up a sequel to Ruin and like what we saw in Security Breach? Is it going to be a follow-on from this where we then see the Fiona's program fail and the Mimic learn violence again? Or is it going to be something else entirely that's going to take it in a brand new direction, which allows them to like refill in the gaps between Secret of the Mimic and Security Breach? Where, again, if FNAF 1 to like 4 to 7 are in-universe games, like Help Wanted seems to suggest, is there a world where they're essentially going to retell the story as it actually is, but with the Mimic involved, and therefore the Mimic needs to be released because the Mimic needs to get sealed underground later? That was a lot. Thank you for that question. That is a wild one, and that's going to be a lot to think about. There's a lot of connections between these two. But yeah, basically the connection between David and David is, I see it as one of two things. It is either the literal, they are literally the same character based on the secret ending, or it is meant to be Fazbear's taking of the real David Mimic storyline and putting it into the in-universe games that they made and putting it onto Afton's storyline. Because there are a lot of parallels, not just that. But I need to think about that some more. What else we got? I've lost chat, by the way, but it's all good.
Okay, cool. So, pick 1 or pick 2?
Oh. Pick Min. Sorry. I'll 2. Why not?
Ooh, okay. He chose the wild one.
Oh, great. Here we go. Here we go.
All right, so same name, same bedroom, same toys, same house, same land. Occam's razor. I think if there's a possibility, it's the same person. We are maybe. Sorry, maybe. Anyways.
So this was a rather specific question in chat, but I feel like with the entire timeline really being called into question, and with the recurring statement of Tom's that the games are games.
The games are games,
The games are
They
games.
keep telling us this.
There was a response to that asking, if the games are games, let's talk those original core games,
Yep.
which are games.
Yep, the games which are games. Yep, the games are games.
Is it possible with the connections between like David, Crying Child, all that FNAF 4 and those adjacent games were used to potentially train the Mimic?
Oh, 100%. 100%. So,
Oh!
games use
Games are games.
to train mimic. You got to write this stuff down. Got to write it down. Thank you, chat, for that question. That's a good one. But yeah, I think this is almost certain at this point, honestly. We've talked about it in previous theories, but the idea is that in Help Wanted, which is when we find out that the games are games, Help Wanted, we get told about some circuit boards that are... We get told about some circuit boards that contain some programming which will help them shortcut the development process. Now, even just that phrase about shortcutting development, the whole selling point of the Mimic is it can fit into any costume and take on any character. So it can learn a bunch of routines rather than just learning a single routine like a normal programmed animatronic. And so they want those circuits scanned and put into the game in order that they can shortcut because they're recreating the games, right, in VR. Like it's an in-universe VR game that they're making during Help Wanted. And so they want to go, hey, like take this software, these things that have taught us, that have been shown to like know Freddy's routine, know Bonnie's routine, shove that into the game and it will shortcut the fact that you don't need to program that in anymore, which is, so no more programming. No more programming. Running out of room. Circuit boards, no more shortcut development, no more programming. So the only thing that we know can do that is the Mimic. And from scanning in said software and said circuit boards, we then end up with the wonderful one and only... Oh no. Glitch Trap.
Glitch Trap.
Who we call that because he
Of
looks
course.
like Springtrap but is glitchy. You know,
Glitchy
that
Glitch Trap.
I think it's important to remember that these names are often fan names that we have come up with based on the information we have. But as time has gone on and we learnt about the Mimic 1 and Mimic 2 programs in the books, we started to believe that Glitch Trap was the Mimic. Specifically, we believed it to be Mimic 1, which is the Fiona program that we now know. And so, part of it is but even that, you know, that could be questionable. There's some options here. Because again, we want to keep things open as we theorize. But we believed it to be the Mimic program in some form. From here, it is basically them being fed all this data. Like, look at these old games. Look at the games that have been made, FNAFs 1 to 7, and help recreate these for our VR game. So they use the Mimic to recreate the VR games, which means the Mimic is being exposed to the stories that we were all exposed to. The purple guy killer who abandoned his son, whose son got bit, whose other son got scooped out by Funtime animatronics. All of these characters and deaths and violence and being shoved into animatronic suits, all of that was fed to the Mimic in order to make Help Wanted happen, the game. And therefore, the thing that's really interesting just about this game in general is that the Mimic here isn't stagnant. The Mimic is going to evolve. Be good if I spelt evolve with the correct word first.
Pokemon evolution. Come on. You got this.
It's, gosh, my handwriting, I apologize. This is, again, welcome to theory crafting where handwriting gets awful. But
Sorry.
It is going to evolve and change as time goes on. So while right now we're looking at this with fresh eyes of Secret of the Mimic and going, oh, Mimic 1 equals Fiona, Mimic 2 equals David with Edwin's violence. the more the mimic is exposed to, the more it's going to take on personalities of other things and characters that it is exposed to, be that simple animatronic characters or be that purple murderers, which is why it takes on that form. It takes on the form of Glitch Trap because that is the new character, or one of the new characters it's been exposed to. It's been exposed to Afton, so it goes, ooh, taking on the form of a yellow rabbit. And so I think it is almost certain that the games were accidentally used to train the mimic, but I think that's why we're seeing, in the post-it room, for example, we see the Afton family sat around, and we see all 5 members of the Afton family. Now, in the games that are games, as we keep talking about, they are it's all about putting the Afton family back together. We have always talked about that's why Vanessa is there, because she looks like Elizabeth. Gregory looks like the crying child. Like, these sorts of factors are, let's bring the family back together. That's what the Mimic is trying to do, based on its training on Glitch Trap and all of his and like Afton and all of his stuff. But that original push, that original idea of let's put the family back together came from Fiona all the way back in Secret of the Mimic. It's just that as it started to get trained with these things, its purpose has gotten muddied, or could have been muddied, because it's going to evolve and keep adapting. So it's now still pushing to put the family back together, but it's not clear which family it's now trying to put together, and even it's confused. I think in the post-it room there's like one of the post-its, the binary talks about like, what am I? And someone found in the moon section, I saw it on Twitter today, in the moon section down in Secret of the Mimic, there's a poster or a note that talks about memory error. So it's written from like the perspective of a mimic, and it basically talks about essentially waking up and being a happy family, but having no kind of memory before that bit, which sounds like a robot that's come to life, having never experienced like having no memories, because it's literally just been shoved into this moment, and here's like who you are and your character with no backstory, which would tie into the mimic's confusion as to like, who am I? What am I as a character? Am I David Afton? Am I David Murray? Who do I belong to? And so I think it was, basically, so in short, I think that is true. I think the games were used to train the mimic accidentally, but by doing that, it has caused the mess of a security breach and what we see when it's rebuilding the Afton family. Plus, we've got bits of Fiona and like trying to still connect with the mimic downstairs, which is what we're kind of seeing here, and trying to fix that. It's interesting. And it, again, also ties into that whole thing of, were the stories it fed completely? We all good? It's all good. It's fine. Off-screen things. All part of it. But it comes down to that question of, again, are the games totally fictionalized to the point where the character, so Glitch Trap and the Mimic were being fed all this information, but that was fictionalized, and so that's why it's confused, because the stories feel similar in a number of ways, and so it's like mixing the ideas? Or is it just that the Aftons and the Murrays had a lot of similarities in the way they raised family, and the way they did stuff together, and so it was fed on the slightly altered but mostly true stories? It's just an interesting way to look at it. You guys good?
Yeah, so we saw some chats that were so good, I fell over and knocked over like several beverages.
Well, hit me with them.
Wow! The very fact that there's some chat that is so good that, oh my god! That's legendary.
Alright, so I've been writing all of that down. I am partially covered in coffee and pistachio milk.
Oh no!
Oh no, but it's because y'all are doing so well. Alright, so we have some additional things for you.
Okay.
Let's start at top level, and we'll keep on going, and then you'll see the question that made me fall over the desk. So I think a big one that I've seen a whole lot is the significance of the number 4625,
yes,
and what the heck that means. Also, just want to flag for you, Tom. If the chat disappears, it's because you put the mouse on the ground
Oh.
and you're letting the computer fall asleep.
That's what that is.
Yep.
Okay, good to
You're
know.
just hiding it from yourself. It's all
Yes.
good.
I'm
Sorry.
my own worst enemy, which feels very fitting because I did this to myself. So sorry, repeat that question. That was
What is the significance of 4625?
4625.
4625.
Writing it down. 4625. So, for those of you who don't know, this number first showed up during Help Wanted 2's mini DLC update that happened to tease Jackie and Secret of the Mimic. It was the code that was used to activate the mixes. It was on like the letterbox out front of MCM and was used to activate mixes as mixes was driven away. In this game, it became a recurring number for certain codes. I believe it showed up in date form as well. Like we all thought originally it was teasing when the game was going to come out. Apparently not. 46. So it could be a date, right? Steelwool are American, so it's going to be April 6th, 2025. But so like you go, you know, April, because you guys are strange, and do the date, the month first, which I have to keep reminding myself. So like, it could be April 6th, 2025. Is that trying to tell us like when the future games take place?
Or April 6th, 1925, before World War II. Oh.
Were we wrong about the timeline? Could it be that literal? It's an option. I'm trying to remember specific places where I remember it showing up a lot and being very confused by it, and whether it's now just a number that Steel Wool are using to, I don't know, like using just to like troll people. I saw someone in chat remind me, yes, so it was the frequency. That Edwin found Fiona, which sounds confusing, but it's because he is working on the Mimic and he occasionally feels like he's hearing Fiona's voice, so he's like retuning the radio frequency. And when he does that, there's the odd occasion he can hear Fiona, which is the Mimic like talking to him, right? As Fiona. So there's that instance of it. 460, 4,000. That's also the number of tasks for Dolly. Oh.
Dolly tasks.
There's a number of times this shows up. I think it's a code on one of the walls. Repeated to the full fest. Maybe everything started on April. Yeah. The other option is, I mean, that is also true. I'm seeing this a lot, it could be 1925.
Yeah.
Which would be super early. But we did talk about that in our very, very OG timeline. We talked about Fredbear's singing show and how Fredbear's singing show had a very 1930s, 1940s pie-eyed artistic style. And so whether it was originally designed to be like an actual singing bear show that happened in the 1930s, people singing, or the bear, would get up and sing in the way that old musical animal performances would work. Which is not great if you look at the history of the circus. It's not great, but it could have been was that the very start of Fazbear? Possibly.
It could be. But you do recognize that 1925 in our current day and age is the equivalent of our grandfather's father being born. That old. Yeah, that is a bit.
It's one of those ones where the more and more stuff, like Fredbear's singing show, we now have a record for.
Halfway there.
Which comes from their favorite restaurant. David, the Mimic, Edwin's the favorite diner, the favorite place they would go is Fredbear's Family Diner, and there was a record for Fredbear's Singing Show. And so it is still a modern thing. Doesn't mean it can't be older, but it feels less and less likely that they're going to go back that far.
Maybe.
Oh, that's a good point. I just saw that come through. Thank you, chat. That is interesting. Because one of our big discoveries throughout this, we found a room which had Edwin and Fiona as portraits. And then right above the main door was another man who we'd never seen before. And later on we discovered that there is Mr. Murray
Mr. Muddy.
Sr.
Senior.
Could this be this 1925 date be when Mr.
His
Murray
birthday.
Sr.
Birthday.
founded MCM? Could that be the actual start of things with early costumes, early designs? Sorry,
What?
I'm just keeping up with chat to try and make sure that I am catching what people are saying. But yeah, the idea that Murray founded it then. I mean, there's nothing to say he couldn't. He dies. It's implied that he does die because it says he's gone. So Mr. Murray Sr. dies at some point. We don't really know the dates of those audio recordings. There's a bunch of audio recordings that work together to like show Edwin taking over the factory and doing all of that. Now it dies like mid 1970s, like the stonks go down very, very badly. But they start to skyrocket because of Edwin's inventions, I think the late 60s, early 70s, if I remember the graph correctly. So he had to have died around then, which means he would have been like, could have been in his 80s, could have been an early death in his 60s, but either way, he'd have been around during then. I guess the question is, what would be the benefit of it being then? How did Murray Sr. die? We don't know. It just kind of says, I can't believe he's gone and he's left everything to me. So it's an interesting idea. I like this, and again, it ties back to Fredbear's Singing Show, and maybe those businesses do go back really far because
Maybe.
Edwin, when Edwin starts to go more into madness and starts to talk really heavily about like, they're gonna betray you, there's a leak, and there's all these things, he starts to get into kind of madness, and he says very, very specifically, don't trust them.
Don't trust them. Them?
Dad was
That was.
right.
Don't trust them. That was right.
And so it feels
Right.
like, because again, a lot of the betrayals in this moment, while there are people in the company that are leaving, there's a lot of emphasis put on Edwin's relationship to Fazbear. And so, does his dad know Fazbear? Do both companies go all that way back?
Wow.
Maybe.
Wow.
It's an interesting idea. The idea,
way.
the thought that they all go that way back. So he, or at least, even if Fazbear is slightly later, 30s, 40s, 50s, Edwin knows, or Edwin's father at least, knows of Fazbear and is like, hey, don't trust them, they're snakes. Which is fascinating that the companies could go that far back together.
What?
Don't trust them. Dad was right.
What?
Yeah. It's fascinating as an idea that they go so far back. And again, it's hard to know exactly what Edwin did to change the business because he's like, oh, let's put some of my designs forward. Let's develop these crazy inventions and crazy ideas to shift the company and rebrand. So it's hard to know what they did prior to that. Did they only do costumes before that? In which case, is that like the origin of the Glitch Trap costume was actually one of his dad's original designs, like all the way back? Maybe? Interesting. But this number, just going back to this number keeps repeating, but I can't tell at this point if it's an Easter egg, because it's like Dolly's tasks, Murray's costume, like Murray's potentially founded when he did that if it's 1925. It's the frequency which Edwin finds Fiona in. It's a secret code to get into one of the back rooms. It feels that this, like, again, I wonder if it's, sometimes it's just developers trolling, and I do wonder whether Steelwill is trolling us, because we put so much emphasis on this one code being, oh, this is the release date, this is an important thing. I know John did an incredible theory breaking down what that number is. And so I don't know if it's just them going to go, we're going to shove this code in so many places as an Easter egg. But then it could be an Easter egg that has a meaning deeper down, and one of these is right. But the others are just references to that one thing. It's interesting. Ash, you got another one for me?
I sure do, and I'm going to stand a healthy distance away from any kind of liquid on the tech desk.
That's probably wise.
All right, cool. So another one I'm seeing quite a lot that I want to make sure gets addressed is the matter of Fiona. And Fiona being mixes or not being mixes.
Yeah, this one is so confusing. So, I think
just now there was is 4625 465 4625 4625
let's. So, Fiona, thank you for these questions, chat.
Thank
These
you.
are great. This is great discussion. This is what I wanted this to be. Is literally just you get to see inside my brain a little bit, and I get to see inside your brain, and you get to share some cool stuff with me. This is great. Thank you. So Fiona equals mixes. So we did learn what mixes stands for in this game. Mixes stands for, if I remember correctly, mechanical X-form experimental storage. That is what mixes stands for. Now, the mixes in the game is part of the Cradle.exe. So Cradle.exe is the program that we load, which Fiona says in one of the group chats that we get, there is a message between, that's the title is in binary, so it's implying it's Fiona in the digital Mimic 1 Fiona. And she basically says, hey, something's gone wrong with M2. It's become violent. We need to fix it. Run the Cradle.exe, which will subdue it and fix the problem. Which the Cradle.exe is mixes. It's this program. When you open the message, this is what, or you open the program, this is the message that comes up. Where this gets confusing and where Fiona's part in it comes in is because the mixes machine is the same one we see. It'd be good if I could spell. Fiona, it's writing in numbers, it's hard. But Fiona, as a robot, is in the same machine that Mixes is in. The M1 program has access to a bunch of other parts of the facility, but because it's implied that the Fiona is playing Dispatch. So the voice of Dispatch is actually M1, i.e. Fiona, mimicking that voice in order to get us to do what she needs. And then when we basically start ruining her plan, she then goes, fine, come in, let's talk. And so she becomes, that's where we are revealed to the Fiona and the Mimic 1 program. Now for me, the thing that's going around my brain, and has been since Ruin, is in Ruin, we got this pen. We got two mimics. You have little Helpy, and you have what I believe the fans call the Grimmick. which is Mimic as Gregory. I've probably spelled that wrong. It's fine.
That's fine.
And so you've got both of them, and they talk to one another. You have the helpy going like, oh, I've fixed, don't worry, they're not going to bother you anymore. I fixed it. And then Gregory, which is the Mimic underground, goes, yeah, with my help. So you have two mimics communicating to one another, which is interesting. And that would speak to me. You've got Helpy, the program that has control of the facility, is actually Fiona. And then you've got Grimmick, who is M2. The guy underground, the physical endoskeleton animatronic. Because it's only able to talk, that's only able to talk to you because you have a walkie-talkie. So you have these two, and they're fighting, but they're working together. At the end of the day, Helpy is trying to help you get to the Mimic underground. And the reason it's doing that is because Fiona wants to be reunited with her family and wants to fix M2. That's what she wants to do. That is her goal. And so she needs Cassie to go down into the basement and set M2 free in order that Fiona can fix it. Mixes, on the other hand, does not want that. Mimic does not want fix and free. I'm going to write that down because Mixes does not want that. Mixes does not want M2 to be free. It is specifically doing everything it can to stop you from freeing it. It is a safety precaution, which is what Cradle is designed for. So, but it's in the same computer. This is the stuff where things start to go wild and start to get a little bit crazy in theory land. Because you've essentially got two versions of Fiona with two opposite goals. So, but the Mixes is the cradle.exe. It's not the glitched one that we use to fix Mimic 2 in the secret ending. It's purely what we do at the end of the parachute ending to try and get things to progress and to like stop the Mimic, which doesn't really seem to work. So we also see someone picks up Mixes in the Help Wanted 2, one of the Help Wanted 2 like DLC endings. Someone picks up Mixes and drives off with it. Possibly to try and bring it to Security Breach, unless Security Breach is built on top of that, which it does seem like it is, which is slightly confusing. But what I wonder, so again, remember, open minds as we think these things through. Because what if we've all had the thought that, oh, it was Gregory and Vanessa, because their stuff is down in the basement. Gregory's bag is down in the basement, so they put Mixes there to stop Mimic, which is entirely possible. But what if it was whoever actually locked the Mimic down there? Because again, her machine is in a different location to where the Mimic is in Ruin. If you think about the rooms, maybe I would need to map out the entirety of Secret of the Mimic, because you have her stuff is in like the FNAF 1 location underground. You then run through a bunch of then you end up in the room with the costumes, which don't seem like they're connected in Secret of the Mimic. Then you run through a bunch of corridors, and then you end up at the scoop. So is she in the same place, or was she moved? If she was moved, did whoever bring Mixes in to try and stop the Mimic actually end up bringing M1 Helpy Glitch Trap into the system? I don't think so, because I think that's what Help Wanted is about Glitch Trap, M1 Fiona entering into Fazbear's systems. It could be that there's like split entity, split personality, that kind of vibe. Because Mixes is a bunny, which is very Afton coded. Like, it's a program that is designed to stop the mimic. It's a bunny, which is very strange. So it feels like it maybe was altered. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe Greg, because the system, it doesn't work. It doesn't solve the mimic problem at the end of the parachute ending. So maybe it's Gregory. Maybe it's Gregory. Does Gregory, once he's free of Glitch Trap, alter Cradle to actually try and stop it? And because of his influence under Glitch Trap, where he is Dr. Rabbit in the books, you know, he has a rabbit connection. And so maybe he turns it into the Mixes we now know. It was originally Fiona's idea, and he uses Fiona's hardware because it was the same hardware as where Cradle was first created, and so like there's that, but he altered it maybe?
Alright, I'm going to play a bit of a devil's advocate. You are saying maybe a lot. It's, when you say maybe too many times, I don't know, man, it's just like, hey, this is a possibility that might not actually be probable. Sorry. Maybe.
It's interesting. That's a tough one.
Yep.
It is a very confusing detail. Because Fiona is not directly the Cradle.exe, but she is in the same computer. I need to go back and look at the computer in Ruin. Because I don't think it has this written on it. I don't think it has Fiona's name written on it. I think it has Mix's written on it. Which implies someone's altered it or rebuilt it or done one slightly differently. It's interesting. And it's the fun of theorizing. You don't always solve everything in the immediate. Otherwise, we'd have theories out tomorrow. It's going to take a few weeks. So let's put a pin in that one. That's a great question, though, chat. Thank you so much. That's great. Ash, you got, what time is it? Oh, we're doing all right. Okay. Maybe time for one or two more.
Yeah, I think we got a couple lined up for you.
Let's go.
So let's zoom out a little bit from this question.
Yeah, we're getting very, very granular, so it's good to reframe.
Yeah, so chat is yearning to know, what exactly did Afton and Henry Emily invent or make, like actually?
Right. That was what a lot of my writing down notes were during our stream, to be fair. What did they do? What do?
What
So,
do?
Let's...
What do?
Henry... I don't know. There's probably an E in there, I don't know. Afton. What did they actually invent? So, again, there's some nuance to this question. Again, depending on how much we want to take the games as pure fiction or as maybe semi-loose alternatives to reality. Because if they're pure fiction, then we basically have no idea, which sucks. Because FNAF, if FNAF 7 doesn't exist, then we basically have no representation of like Afton or anybody in the games. But beyond that point, which kind of sucks. The big one that I know everyone's talking about, and it has been a point of discussion, is spring locks.
The spring lock suit.
Did Henry create the spring locks? It is a thing that has been attributed to him for a very long time. We have that line in FNAF 6 that says, trapped in prisons of my making, i.e. he made the animatronics. I don't believe in the games it's mentioned. I believe but I may be wrong, and feel free in chat to let me know if there is somewhere else in the games where this is referenced. I believe his invention of spring locks is a book reference. I remember I've been trying to brush up on some of my book knowledge because there's so much. It is referenced in the Silver Eyes. So in the Silver Eyes, it mentions that he creates the spring lock. So Afton specifically says, oh, that was a Henry invention. That was something he made. And so that's kind of why we attribute that to him so often. Then we get to this game, and there are a bunch of Springlock costumes. And not only that, but he says, Edwin has notes that says, like, I got the change orders from Hen last night. This doesn't make any sense. Why would they change at the last minute? Just, hire teenagers to wear the spring suits like we always do. Which, you know, shows that there's a relationship between Edwin and Henry. Like, though these two clearly are pals. Oh. These two are pals. And so because he calls him Hen, which means that there's like a friendship or at least a more casual relationship than, Mr. Afton or William, like full name. It's like, no, this is Hen. This is my buddy Hen, a fellow, which implies like, again, some level of like fellow creative, fellow inventor. We get on, we understand each other.
Yeah, saying the word hey is kind of different from saying the word hello. It's like, hello internet, welcome to Game Theory. It's like, hey internet, welcome to Game Theory. It's kind of like, a bit different lah, sorry.
But Edwin created a bunch of spring locks. So did Henry actually invent the spring locks in the games? The one detail that I think has to be pointed out is there's a message from Edwin that says something along the lines of, the new designs for the spring locks are going well, even with the water damage. So Edwin's, I'm just going to go down here for Edwin's spring locks can survive water damage. He still says there are other quirks, which we don't know what those are, but it specifically says even with the water damage they're working, which implies the fact that he says even with is implying that there were spring locks before that did suffer when there was water damage, i.e. the ones that Henry made. Because Henry's ones are the ones that had the issue with water. At least as far as we know, it's his spring locks that have the water issue with sweat and things like that. Mm-hmm. So there is a world where Henry did create spring locks and Edwin was the one that improved them or helped patent the design or maybe worked in tandem with Henry.
Maybe.
Get spring locks made. Because again, all of the things that are in the reason it's been such a question is because everything in Edwin's workshop is for rent or sale. Which means he has to have ownership over everything that's in there. And most of what is in there are spring locks. All these spring locks belong to Edwin. So did he have a contractual partnership with Fazbear where it's like, hey, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. You invented the spring locks, let me improve them, and then I get to use them in some of my creations. I will continue making stuff for you. Was it a quid pro quo like that? Or did Edwin really invent them and then just rented them out to Fazbear, and this was just a future design that he made where it got better?
True.
Because I understand the wanting to make sure Henry actually did invent things. I want Henry to actually have some importance in the franchise, and so they did change at the last minute to going, hey, we're changing the work order, no more spring locks. He said, just get the kids to do the spring locks everyone else, but he asked for a change, which implies that they never did the change, or they Well, they never did the changeover. It implies that, yeah, they were wanting to move away from the spring locks. But that they didn't, at the time, pick up his order of the new spring locks. They were still operating with the old spring locks. Because the ones we find a Spring Bonnie and a Gold Freddy down in the basement, which seem to be Edwin's new design. Are those the ones they ended up using once they acquired everything? Did they take those and put those in the diner, and that's what like caused the bite of 83? Is that what the weird glitches or the weird quirks that Edwin talks about? Because they've got weird quirks. Does that equal 83? Maybe? Because they pick those ones up later. But the water damage, but yeah, that one line about him saying these ones resist water damage does imply there were ones before. It's just whether Henry invented those. Because again, as far as I'm aware, the only reference we get to him making spring locks is in the books, which is a different continuity.
Yeah. Okay, you know what? There's 30 minutes left into the video. Into this video, I'm going to take a break. Right now it's 5:22 p.m. See you in like 2-3 minutes. Alright, take a short break. So sorry. Sorry. I am back. Yeah. Alright, let's continue.
So there's that.
I've seen a couple questions about the puppet proper and whether or not that's still Henry adjacent.
The puppet, that's a good one. That is a good one, the puppet. So the only reference to the puppet, there are only two references I could spot in Secret of the Mimic. One is Jackie. Jackie has a wind-up music box, and said music box plays the same grandfather clock theme that the puppet does. So Jackie is the prevolution of the puppet.
Revolution.
But the only other reference to the puppet is we get, there are designs that are redacted in the one of the very final computers in the parachute ending. And it just says redacted, it basically just says redacted puppet designs. We don't know whether those are puppets as in the puppets that Fiona made, so like alternate puppets for like Foxy and things like that, or whether it is the puppet.
The puppet.
So, depends on what you define by invent. Because clearly there is basis in Jackie. Clearly, Henry had inspiration taken from Jackie, the idea of it being a thing that pops out of a box, the idea that it plays the grandfather clock theme. Those things are Jackie things, and so the puppet is an evolution of that. Does it mean, like, Henry absolutely could have made the puppet as we know it today, security puppet to protect Charlie in FNAF 6 as we saw, but its design originates here. And if the redacted puppet designs are Edwin and are on that computer, then they belong to Edwin. Or they originally belonged to Edwin. Again, contract law is funny, and they clearly acquired everything that he owned and created. So it would be Fazbear, it would be rightfully theirs to use, but they also poached a bunch of people beforehand, which meant the business went under, so they kind of like forced the buyout to happen. And people, I'm seeing people talk about it. The one that ends up assessed by Charlie was probably Henry's design. And that's the thing. Edwin dies and or disappears. And so once we leave Secret of the Mimic, any designs and new characters or versions of designs are coming from Fazbear. They're coming from these two. And so the puppet is essentially a Henry design, depending on if we ever find out what this is. Because if Edwin at least designed the initial version of the puppet, then it's just Fazbear doing what they do with Chica and Foxy and Freddy and all these characters and remaking them into new versions of those characters. We saw how even Edwin was going, why are they changing the designs? These new ones are so creepy. I like Fiona's designs and they can't make me change them. Well, eventually Fazbear got hold of them and decided to change them anyway. So it might be that, like, again, Jackie is Edwin's design and they were like, we're going to change it to this creepy puppet thing. And Edwin didn't want to do that, wasn't keen on that, but obviously he died, disappeared, and they decided to own everything. So that's a thing. Any other Henry-isms that people are shouting out, or if not, we can move over to like Afton.
Chat, here's your chance.
This is not still frame. This is not still frame. He is moving. He is moving. He's blinking.
Not seeing many, which is fine. We can move happily over to Afton. Because Afton did zilch. No, Afton,
Zilch.
what did Afton do? Realistically, Afton really, the only thing we know is that he did the Fun Times. Fun Times were Afton Robotics, and they are very, very different to any other technology. They are very different from the Mimic. They are very different from Henry, Springlocks, or Endos, however you want to look at those. They are different. They are full of wires and all those things, and it seems like those are the only things that we can truly attribute to Afton. Afton Robotics also made things like the scoop and some of the distraction boxes. I think Henry made Lefty, so that's something Henry did make, is Lefty, to trap the puppet. He made sound illusion discs. Depends on how if you think those are canon anymore. I thought they were for a long time, and it felt like they were going to be. But the challenge is that the sound illusion discs are with FNAF 4, and FNAF 4, the books then sound illusion discs were real in the books, but then they also said, oh, by the way, FNAF 4 is hallucinogenic gas. So, hard to say is the answer. But if they are canon, then they definitely are an Afton invention. We'll put those in there in parentheses. Sound illusion discs. And so, yeah, it's a tricky one to, I don't know, like, I'm trying to think blueprints, because it's obviously like, Mr. Afton, let's talk about your designs. but it's literally the fun times. Because again, we don't spend that much time with Afton and his inventions outside of in the Silver Eyes trilogy and outside of Sister Location, Ultimate Custom Night, those worlds, right? And him already being dead as Springtrap. So, and Afton, again, in the books and in the early parts of the game, he was always described as the businessman. He was the brains of the operation. We see that in Secret of the Mimic. He's the one that's poaching other people. It's not very businessman-like respectful, but he is a businessman, and he is poaching people and offering them more franchises, and he's buying the land that Edwin Murray stands on. He's the businessman. He was never really supposed to be this person. But he ends up kind of becoming very jealous of Henry. Again, this is where, like, the Silver Eyes is a fascinating series of books because we really get characterization for both Henry and William. And both of them really, we find that Afton is a businessman, but he also, like, worships Henry and his animatronic genius. He essentially is just like, he is in awe because Henry can make the spark of life that he can't create. Even though he's invented the fun times, he still can't mirror what Henry did. And that's always a fascinating thing because he was really just the businessman, but he became so jealous of Henry that he wanted to be able to do it himself, making the Fun Times, Circus Babies, Pizza World. It flops, kills his daughter, is a whole thing. So this is where Secret of the Mimic is rubbing a lot of people the wrong way, and it's why we had so many shocked reactions over on GT Live, because you look at this, and outside of the Fun Times and maybe the Springlocks, you're looking at it and going, Edwin made most of these things, or at least was the originator of the idea, which is kind of weird and kind of sucks, but also it's where it leads into, it goes back to the idea we were talking about the games being games, because outside of those, we don't know much about Edwin, about Henry or Afton. And so it makes sense that in those games, it leans into the idea, if this is Fazbear rewriting history to make light of the incidents that happened, but they're also trying to rewrite history to remove Edwin from the picture and going, it was always Fazbear all along. We're going to impose this little family unit and the idea of putting them all back together onto Afton. We're going to make the murders, this evil CEO we had that's no longer with us because it allows us to like kind of shove it all under the rug rather than, hey, by the way, it was a killer animatronic that we kind of still have under our possession. Whoopsie. We can shove it all there. We can make Henry this redeemable character who was like the creative genius behind everything to attribute some of the more creative ideas to him. And so it could have been them entirely rewriting history in order to hide the fact that they didn't do any of this. And so now, all these years...
Alright, the thing is, when you mentioned rewriting history, that is quite serious because history revisionists is... Okay, that's the saying. Those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
We've spent 10 years believing that these guys did all of this, when in actuality it was this guy which Fazbear has tried to bury. And I think it kind of sucks as an idea, but it would be within Fazbear's interest, it would be within the character we understand, and it would be evil. It would be truly evil. And like this game as well, one of the big things they kept doing is really emphasizing how just evil Fazbear is. Partially that was the Mimic pretending to be Dispatch, but it learned how to do that from Fazbear. And it's like, you know, I've been working for 36 hours, please let me sleep. That's great, Arnold. Thanks.
No.
And it just does that whole shtick. So it is hard to say exactly what they made. It doesn't feel like all that much. And Afton, again, is happy to poach people. He was happy to take people away from, and for them to take the ideas and the other contact with them. He was not above stealing ideas and claiming them as a Fazbear thing and claiming them as his own. Then he bankrupted Edwin and MCM and bought it out so that he could take all the credit and it would all be above board. So for him not to have invented much tracks and makes sense. It's the Henry stuff that I think I and a lot of other people, we want Henry to have done something, to have been somewhat involved. And he clearly has a relationship with Edwin. So there is some semblance of like, oh, maybe they were creatives together, but we just don't have the evidence right now. We'll have to see if DLC comes up and gives us an answer. Right. I think we have time for maybe one more.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, Ash is giving me the eyes. No, the knowing eyes that this is going to trip me up. Okay. Where are we going?
All right, Tom. Tell me about the goo.
The goo?
The goo.
The goo!
Not the Faz goo,
No, not the Faz goo.
but the orange goo.
The orange goo that we refused to name our entire playthrough.
Yeah. Tell us what's up with that.
Goo.
No. No. No.
What do?
What goo? What
Goo
goo?
what do? This goo. Ash and I danced around this goo the entirety of our playthrough. It is there. It is powering the facility. So let's write this down. Let's write down the thoughts. So what is the goo and what does it do? In the context of this game, it is an orange liquid.
Orange color.
It powers the facility.
Power facility. Power supply, I
It's-
guess. Power supply.
Is connected to Dolly and the recycling
A cooling
because
agent.
we see the furnace, and when you melt all that metal down, you get like, so when you have like molten Dolly, it is orange goo, which implies those two things are the same. And so, Edwin's whole point of recycling is taking old things and turning them into new, useful things. That might be new machines, but it also seems to imply that he is using because I think we have to power the furnace. Or once Dolly goes in, we can like hit a power button that like powers a door and powers the lift. So, it is the recycled metal that is this orange goo. That is powering the facility and powering the various puzzles we have to do. And especially when we go down to R&D, down right into the heart of the facility, the basement, we see a lot of this orange goo going down into the basement for Edwin to create the first Fazbear animatronics, the first Fazbear location. So there is a discussion to be had, or a thought process to be had around. Some of it is just doing exactly that. It's powering the facility, but it is also being used to create, I wish, the OG Faztronics. So Freddy, Chica, all of those guys that are down in the basement are being remade. All those scrap pieces are being like reformed and remade down there,
Used.
as well as powering the facility. It might also be part of the powering of Fiona and Fiona's power, which implies it therefore has a connection to the Mimic. And this is where we get to the thing that Ash has been trying to tease me into talking about the entire time, is Remnant. Woohoo! The word! I said it. So we've got to write that down, obviously, because this is the thing that everyone's been wondering is it Remnant? And I think, because the thing about this game, and the modern steel wool era of games, is there aren't any spirits. There we go. There's chat going off. Love it. Love to see it. Thanks, guys. This is where we get... There are no spirits in these games. It is all about the Mimic and AI taking over the world, right? And taking over Fazbear. And so it doesn't make sense for this to actually be Remnant in what we believe Remnant to be, which it's described... The Remnant, it should be noted that Remnant is described as a silver, I think sometimes black, maybe? But like a silvery black metal. So it's not orange, but that's because it's in, like, I mean, it is hot, so it's like, it's not molten, but it is in a hot form for it to be liquid, and it's then injected into things. There is a difference. I also think, again, lines up with the thing, I'm gonna have to talk about this in a video, aren't I? Like, the idea that the games are games and more fictionalized than we maybe first thought. Because if that's, like, if we're looking at Fazbear trying to go, how do we retell this story in a way that puts all emphasis on Fazbear, takes away emphasis from Edwin Murray, and turns it from technology corrupting that could still be a problem into, ooh, spooky ghosts go bump in the night, and this is like it's a spooky ghost story that you tell around Halloween, and we're leaning into all of that to make people kind of like nonchalantly not worry about Fazbear and all of that. If you've got all this orange liquid and goo, which is powering the facility, powering the mimic, the thing that might be the murderer and like possessive element, do you recontextualize it? Is the game's remnant them fictionalizing and like turning into a bigger thing remnant? So it's taking the orange liquid and going, rather than it just being a power source, rather than it just being, you know, the thing that creates animatronics and creates the mimic is a thing that brings dead people back to life. And so you end up with essentially what the games then call remnant is a metal liquid that brings life to animatronics. And it's just a recontextualizing spooky ghost story version of what this orange liquid is that is powering the facility. That would be a more easy, straightforward thing, because again, in Secret of the Mimic and in every Steel Wool game, possession is less of a thing. It is more about an AI taking over technology, and it is also taking over the minds of humans. But it is not like, oh, you're possessed by Glitch Trap, or in the sense of like William Afton's spirit. It is an AI like imprinting itself onto your brain, onto a human brain, almost like The Matrix, where Agent Smith is trying to get into the real world, and so he is trying to imprint on like Neo and people so that he can enter the real world. It feels kind of like that, and so it's a recontextualizing of what this orange goop is that they have, as opposed to the orange goo actually being Remnant. It feels maybe it's the inspiration for what Remnant would become. Or maybe it is where after, again, if the games aren't just like completely fictional, maybe it's where Afton got some of his inspiration for Remnant and the creation of Remnant and the Fun Times was because he saw all this orange goo flying around and he was going, how do we connect? Maybe this is the connection. Maybe this is the piece that will answer it. And he kind of tries to copy Edwin with what he knows, which is here's an animatronic with a life in it, i.e. like Fiona, like the Mimic, but it's like possessed this time. And so he tries to melt that down and turn that into the orange goo that was powering his entire facility and allowed the creation of the Mimic. Two interpretations there. It's either literal or it's an inspiration. But that's what I think. Like, so which one do I think? I'm leaning more towards it being an inspiration for the game's like fictionalized idea of what Remnant is, and the idea that they've turned this Remnant spirit juice has come from a real life thing that they saw with Edwin, rather than it being Afton basically trying to make his own goo. I don't think it's that, but as with all of these things, I am more than open to having my mind changed. I am open to things existing.
And that's why I like it about the Tears community. It's like, hey, I'm going to say all this, but maybe there's a possibility, probably, I might be wrong on some things, and I like to be open-minded about some things as well. Thank you. Thank you so much.
outside of my initial brain knowledge. I'll be doing a ton of research after this anyway. So with all of these things, with any of these kind of discussions, I'm always looking to kind of go, this is where my brain currently goes based on the logic, but I am open for that to be changed and for that discussion to shift. If not now, maybe in the future. Maybe things will shift.
Maybe.
I think, Ash is leaning up to the mic. Have you got something for me?
Oh.
If you're done with this, I just wanted to ask you one more thing.
I'll go for it. Yeah, sure, why not?
Okay, so first of all, shout out to our theory mods in chat who've been helping out. There's been a lot of cool questions and things.
Thank
And,
Yeah, thank you guys.
thanks y'all for sending me some of the questions that have been scrolling by real quick. So
Thank you so much.
I asked this a little bit at the beginning,
Yep.
and I wanted to bring it back. You touched on it a little bit in the middle there, but I just wanted a clean soundbite for all of our theorists at home. Do you still think Gregory is a robot after everything that we've seen?
Is Gregory a robot? My first FNAF theory. That was trial by fire. Because everything ends in fire with FNAF anyway, so it felt good to start with it. Is Gregory a robot? Honest answer right now is no, I don't think Gregory is a robot. I think there was a lot of stuff that pointed to it early on. And again, robot kids, clearly a thing that exists somewhere because we now have David as a robot. But again, having every kid be a robot kid feels like a lot. We now have David Murray, Robot Kid M2, and we saw Gregory now being a kid who is actually going to school and is actually walking around the Pizzaplex in multiple versions of the books, but specifically, we talk about him being a kid in Escape from the Pizzaplex, which is the canon Choose Your Own Adventure series, or feels very canon anyway, I will say.
Feels very canon.
And in that book, we have Gregory and Cassie are friends, but that isn't to say that Gregory isn't being affected by Glitchtrap, because Vanessa's being affected by Glitchtrap and she feels very human as well. Again, if we suddenly go, well, anyone that's affected by Glitchtrap is a robot, suddenly you've got like 4, 5, 6 robot people on your hands. And that's just a lot from a storytelling perspective to like swallow, right? So I feel like now that we've got this David M1 robot, that is the robot kid we were supposed to be looking at. Gregory, I think, is a kid that screams visually crying child. And I know people like to mock our theories where we pointed out some of the visual connections, but
So instead of being a robot, maybe it's just a human kid that was mind controlled, manipulated, twisted, controlled. I say controlled. Thought up, brought up to behave in a certain way that seems very familiar to being a robot. Recon! Maybe. I may be wrong. Sorry.
I think him and Vanessa having those being infected by Glitchtrap is an important visual thing for the whole we need to put the family back together, which was originally Fiona trying to put the Murrays back together,
Influence.
but it became putting the Aftons back together because the games infected how the Mimic's mind worked. And so I think Gregory was chosen because he felt like a good fit for Crying Child, and so was infected to be Dr. Rabbit and to run around the Pizzaplex causing havoc and hacking them. And similarly, Vanessa was in a similar boat, but I don't think right now that therefore I don't think Gregory is a robot kid. I think we have a different robot kid to worry about right now, i.e. the Mimic. But again, we've been wrong before, we've been right before, so I'm open to seeing where that interpretation goes. But that's where I would sit right now.
Great. So that was the last major question I had. If there was anything else that you specifically, Tom Game Theory, wanted to say about the Secret of the Mimic game,
yeah,
now's your chance.
now is the chance. Honestly, love this game from a gameplay perspective. I mean, I didn't play a lot of it. I'll probably play a lot of it in my own time. Ash crushed it playing this game. You crushed it, Ash. I forget you're here.
I did not, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, but you did, especially when we started collecting stuff. So, you know, credit where credit's due.
Yeah, I much respect to Ash humbleness. Much respect to you. Okay.
But gameplay-wise, it felt really good. It actually felt a lot less buggy than games we've experienced before, which was nice to see. It felt like a very clean experience, very enjoyable. Lore-wise, it's strange. This is the first game we've had a lot of lore up front. Like all of this stuff. Like look, let's look back at everything we've like talked about today. All of this stuff we wrote down, because there are so many questions that are going on right now, and so many things we are wondering. So many some small details that are confusing, and other details that are much more in our face. The whole Edwin storyline is very in your face as a story. Like, it's in the notes, it's in the audio logs, and you get to the end and you kind of have this sense of story, which is unusual for FNAF. Normally it's all hidden details, whereas this has a lot more like in-your-face, obvious storytelling, which is really fascinating. It's great for fans of this franchise to really reset the story, reset sort of the bar. Rather than it being theory upon theory upon theory, we now actually have some kind of base to build theories on, but there is still some stuff to theorize about. I think what a lot of this is going to do for the theory space, which I'm excited for, is rather than theorizing about this game specifically and like the lore within this game, it's about theorizing what does this change? Which is what we've been doing today, is what does it change? What did Henry and Afton actually create? Are the games really just complete fiction, or are they truly more based on real life? All of those things, what is the deal with Fiona and mixes? All of those things affect future games as opposed to changing our perspective on Secret of the Mimic specifically. And that's a really interesting direction for this franchise to go. So I'm very, very excited to see where that goes. I've really enjoyed this game and diving into it. And I look forward to diving into this and coming up with some really, really out there theories for this one, because I think there's going to be a lot all across the platforms. So it's been great fun. And now, you know, if we talk about some of these things, I can call back to this live stream and thank you guys during Game Theories to be hey, we started solving this during this live stream, which is exactly what the point of this is. So I really want to thank you guys so much for showing up, for being part of this, for helping us write everything down and talk through some of these things, ask questions that I maybe wouldn't have asked myself. This has been a really, really fun experience.
Thank you.
I hope you guys have enjoyed this as well, and you know, sound off in the chat if you've enjoyed being here. If you want to see more of these, let us know like in the comments of this stream, because I've really enjoyed this. I would love to do this for more franchises coming up. I'm sure we have more FNAF, more Poppy, many other things. So let us know what you would like us to cover down in the comments, and you know, let us know about what you thought of this format in general. It'll be really, really helpful. But with that, I think it is time to say goodbye for today. Thank you everybody so much for watching. And remember, at the end of the day, that's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching.
I knew it! He's gonna say that! Well, thank you so much. Hope you guys enjoyed. This entirety is 2 hours long. Gosh, right now is 5:54 p.m. 11th of July 2025. Sun is setting down. I literally see the sun just slowly setting down over the past 2 hours. Like, wow! But anyways, thank you so much. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Thank you so much. And also thank you so much to Tom. Thank you so much to everybody involved in this video. Thank you so much for supporting this game tiers. Yeah, thank you. See, 9 hours ago and 101k views. That's a lot of views for a single live stream. Much respect to you. Thank you so much. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. Thank you. Subscribe. Okay, bye bye. Thank you, bye bye, bye bye. Thank you so much. I put suspiciously over here instead of over here, because you know, over here is much bigger, and also I can don't worry about hitting suspiciously anymore. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Subscribe. Thank you. Okay, 2 hours.